Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke Basin, and I'm always honored to have this special guest back on the show, Violent Vince Mosca. Violent Vince, welcome back on the show, buddy.
How you doing, Luke?
It's always an honor having you on the show. We go way back to when we were both much younger. We're still very handsome, but we were much younger back when we first spent some time together. You improved now to 3-0 as a pro boxer, and this boxing win came by a very slow 42-second knockout. Personally, I think you should have been faster, but hey, earning your nickname of Violent Vince. Talk to me about it. What made this the time to say yes to this fight? And then talk us through the fight. I know that you at one point were specializing in Muay Thai and kickboxing and had some success there, and then maybe about a year ago decided to just focus on boxing, and obviously you've been really dominant. So talk about what brought this fight together and then the fight itself.
Yeah, I mean, it was a weird training camp for this fight. I had a couple new guys in my corner, Russ Shiflett, Mitch Vangelis. I've worked with these guys for a while, but this was the first time they were actually in the corner for my fight. So it was a little nerve-wracking at first, but tore my meniscus 3 weeks out from the fight, so I couldn't run. I had neck problems the entire camp, so my sparring was pretty limited. But honestly, like, as horrible as that all sounds, it actually went pretty well. Like, the camp went well. Good things were worked on. I made it work. I took the proper rest when I could. Everything went really well. My weight was lower than it's ever been the entire camp. I was walking around about 187 pounds 5-6 weeks out, which is very light for me. The fight itself, I didn't really get to show a lot of the stuff I wanted it to do. Like, me and my coach Russ and Mitch were talking right before I walked out, and they were giving me, just a refresher on the game plan. And I was like, guys, I'm just gonna rush him for a minute or two to see if he can last. Like, I could kind of see the kid, his demeanor at the weigh-in wasn't great. I didn't think. I didn't really see him making it through a minute or two. If he did, I would have taken a step back and relaxed a little bit, but I came out, Vitor Belfort style, just rushed him right off the bell, hit him with a couple body shots, hit him with a left hook up top. That was the end of the night. It was a relief to get the fight over. It was definitely a stressful couple of months. Fractured my ankle 4 months ago. Like, if you can name an injury, I probably had it in the last 4 or 5 months. But it was good. I'm ready. I'm getting better. It was a good win. Get the confidence back. The weight's under control finally. I'm in a good training camp right now with my guys around, my sparring partners, my coaches. It was a really good closeout to the last couple of months for sure.
Well, I think, Vince, it's always great hearing not only the physical talent side, because like I've said, I've known you've always been a very physically talented fighter, but for people listening to this, just pointing out the mental toughness and the mental game that I think even one of those injuries, most people would have said, hey, I'll put myself on the shelf. So obviously being able to look back, I think mentally always able to see that it's always about your mindset and your perspective. Glad obviously that all of these injuries are manageable, and hopefully that you're starting to recover and work through them. Getting something like weight figured out when you can't run is probably something that you can use the rest of your career. I mean, that's a big deal, obviously, be able to manage whatever you had to do to get that under control. So for you, you are obviously a big time coach. That's a big part, probably your biggest part besides the fighting on the side. So what's it look like going forward? How's it managing both training yourself as a professional fighter and also your coaching, and how's that been going?
It's been going good. This was more of a hectic camp because I do have two guys fighting at Maryland Live. One of them, Sean Souser. I got another kid, Robin Paglia. These are big pro fights for these guys. October is strictly going to be about coaching amateurs because I have the pros the next week, amateurs the week after that, amateurs the week after that. So they were all kind of in camp with me, which works out because I only individually work with fighters with fights coming up while I'm in camp. I work with everybody out of camp. But while I have to be a little selfish, but also need to make sure these people are taken care of, even if I'm training. October is going to be strictly about getting these guys ready. Towards the end of the year, there's another opportunity for me to fight in December. There's not a whole lot of other fighters in our gym doing a lot around that time. It's kind of a weird time for fights. locally. I might try to get another one in. I'm in shape. The knee's healing up. I'm pretty much over the food cravings now. I've already eaten myself into a coma, so I'm pretty much ready to get back to it. But I'm really excited for these next few weeks with the guys getting ready for the fights. I can actually relax a little bit, and the same thing. Like it's more stressful being in the corner, but it's a little bit more of a kind of a relaxing thing, especially after the hectic
Mm.
training I've went through the last couple of months. So yeah, I mean it's been going good. I've been managing it as good as possible. I feel like.
Well, again, that goes to game planning. You and I have talked. Obviously, you're a professional fighter, but the coaching side is a sport in of itself. Figuring out the game planning, both how you train, and you mentioned resting as important. I know as a coach, sometimes enforcing rest and recovery times can be challenging because particularly
Yeah,
fighters, all athletes, particularly fighters, really just want to grind. Good fighters, you kind of have to hold them back. I'd say all good athletes, you kind of have to hold them back. As a coach, if you're having to motivate
yeah,
a fighter or an athlete to want to train, that's probably not the mindset. So really cool to see that.
agreed.
Really excited. Sean Schuster, I've had on the show. I'll reach out to them probably because you said they're fighting this week, probably for post-fight interviews. They win their fights. Would love to have them on. Always exciting to see the up and comers, particularly some of those amateurs and the pros you talked about. For you, as sliding over into the corner, we've talked about this before. What are you trying to do? Because this is more of a hypothetical at this point, but what are you trying to do in the corner between fights when you're a coach versus when you're a fighter? I know as a pro boxer, you don't really get to the corner much because you knock them out
Yeah.
too quickly. But as a fighter, when you're in the corner, what are you trying to process? And as a coach, when you're in the corner, how is that different? Because I know there's a different mindset between the two.
Fighting, I've gotten better with experience, being in the corner, actually being receptive, bringing my heart rate down, and kind of just understanding the way the flow of the fight's going a little bit. Obviously, this past weekend I didn't get to do that, but overall, just taking in what my coaches are saying, kind of having a thought process on my own too, because if I'm not thinking at all, that's a problem. And mostly just relaxing myself. Over the years, I've gotten a lot more relaxed, and that's something I do before the fight, during the fight, in between the fights, whatever. But just basically trying to take in information in the corner as a coach. Um, Basically, just trying to get calm information into my fighter as quick as possible. I see a lot of coaches like they're more cheerleaders. They're screaming at their
Mhm.
fighter. They're telling them to do this. They're giving them 30 things to do in a minute span, which is not how anybody's brain works.
No.
Um, Guys like Sean and Robin are exactly like you said. They're fighting this weekend, and I have to pull them back a little bit, whether it's training or whether it's just in the cage. They're very forward. Just keeping them calm and keeping them having a thought process to what they're doing. Um, I'm hoping these two fights get done early as possible, but just making the adjustments. If it's a 5 minute MMA round, you have to take in the 5 minutes, make the adjustments to win each round. So just basically the short answer is just thinking more of a calm way and
Mm.
relaying information correctly.
Yeah, and it's great to see you progressing because that's what happens in maturity in any sport, both as an athlete and a coach. Things change. I know for me, I started doing the breathing in the first maybe 15 to 20 seconds because I used to be
Right.
hey, my brain is loaded with all this genius idea. Let me just dump it. And I realized the first 15, 20 seconds, which is in some cases half the time, it's about
Yeah.
taking deep breaths. Then I read someplace because I also do mental health counseling, as far as you have to turn back on the brain, right? You have a parasympathetic and a sympathetic nervous system. So obviously in fight or flight, there's really no higher level of functioning. So I would do this little like what's 7 - 2 or some very, very basic math. And I would do that at the end of the breathing, when I thought they were under, a little bit more under control, and be able to see that clarity. Every once in a while, a fighter needed a couple more breaths and they would look a little glazed or not be able to answer. But once they were clear headed and sharp and able to give a real easy answer, then I was able to give them 2, maybe 3 points, but really, really basic action
Right.
points. Another thing you mentioned, I love the cheerleading from the fans, but a corner is not a cheerleader. A corner should be a
Right. Right.
coach.
Right.
But and this is something that comes from the mental health side of things, but free mental health advice. Oftentimes, we tell ourselves or others the negative. So we say to kids, "Don't run in the street," but really, we should be telling them, play in the yard or play on the playground. we say something like, if you're me, I was told, don't bite my brother, because I had a twin brother I would bite when I was a kid. But really, love my mom. But really, the advice should have been, love my brother or be nice to him, right? A lot of times, corners spend too much time saying what not to do. I'm not saying this to you, but I realize it myself. If I hear something not to do, like here's a classic one: don't leave your hands down. Well, we all know keep your hands up is a more positive. So, I in the corner would try to think, okay, I don't want them doing this, dropping their hands or whatever it is. So I'm going to make it the positive, because the brain oftentimes need to focus on what to do. You try to go all day just focusing on what not to do. And in drug and alcohol recovery, when I was working in rehab, obviously I wish the best and prayers for everybody going through addiction. It's terrible. But all too often they focus so much on what they're not going to do, and they don't focus on what they need to do. And just in life in general, if I'm focused on what I'm not going to do, like I don't want to eat a jelly-filled donut, that's not as helpful. Although I do love jelly-filled donuts, that's not as helpful as saying, here's what I am going to do. When I'm hungry, I'm going to snack on almonds or whatever it is, and reminding yourself of that. Same thing with people in recovery. Instead of focusing on, I'm not going to use this drug or alcohol, focus on, I'm going to call this person, I'm going to go to this meeting, I'm going to go on a run, whatever it is. So that's just something that I've always used in the corner. I'm sure you do too, because you're a
I like that. That makes sense. I like that.
Genius coach. But just that, and with people that might look at this and say, wow, coaches really think this much about what they do in the corner. Yeah, because in the corner, there's a lot going on. We all know.
Absolutely.
We all know the coach for Ronda Rousey when she was getting knocked out, how ineffective some of those advice are. And I always want to give a coach benefit of the doubt. I think every coach wants the best for the fighter, but sometimes coaches, even myself, it's hard to know exactly what to say. So, focusing on keeping it simple, action oriented, and a direction you want them to take. A classic one is, don't get taken down. Well, that doesn't mean anything. In MMA, don't get taken down doesn't mean anything, as opposed to like push the head or shove the hips or whatever it is. So what's your thought? What's your thought that we can wrap up on and end on? I know you said your October focus is on coaching, then maybe a fight in December. Kind of what's your mindset? What's a takeaway from you from this fight going forward?
In the last couple of months, I've fallen back in love with fighting. Honestly, like the injuries kind of made me miss it more, and it kind of made me, get other things in line in my life to make training and fighting more enjoyable. I'm really excited. If I told you a couple months ago I'd have fought back-to-back months, as far as fighting last month and maybe fighting November, December now, like I was done with it. I had no interest in doing it. I was losing my mind doing it. I like it again. I love it again. I want to do it. I'm excited. There's new surroundings in my life that I'm enjoying, new surroundings in the gym that I'm enjoying. I'm in love with coaching again. I'm in probably the best mental state of mind I've been in a while. So I'm enjoying the ride. I'm not putting any cap on myself, any expectation on myself. If something cool happens, something cool happens. If something bad happens, something bad happens. I'm excited just to keep it rolling, honestly. So I'm good. I'm excited.
Well, that's an incredible mindset. Happy to always hear that, because I think the mindset does go up and down. Sports psychology, sports mindset is a big part. So glad you're doing better and kind of more of that acceptance. That classic cliche that I love as a counselor. The journey is the destination, because when we can appreciate the moments where you're rehabbing an injury, that's part of your journey. It's not, hey, I want to just get over this, because then that actually creates sort of that loop of anxiety that happens a lot. So always an honor having you on the show. I hope to follow you for many years to come. You're one of my ties back to when I was running Pursuit MMA. It's a great connection from back in those days for me. So thanks for taking time to come out. Congratulations to you. 42-second knockout for Violent Vince Mosca. Thanks so much, buddy.
Always appreciate you, Luke. Thank you so much, man. Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you, brother.